On this episode of Wealth Magazine Business Access, we get to hear from the President and CEO of the Victoria Mutual Group, Courtney Campbell. Taking us on a trek down memory lane, Campbell identifies how faith, discipline, and leadership were a part of his core from a young age, qualities that would later prove vital as he excelled in corporate Jamaica. Campbell also shares his plans to use his extensive experience in the industry to revolutionize the VM Group, making it even more customer-centric and competitive in the financial sector.
I'm Courtney Campbell, President and CEO of the Victoria Mutual Group. I'm a country boy. I was born in Chapelton, Clarendon, to Osmond and Carmen Campbell, two public servants. Grew up in a small family. Just my younger brother and myself with our parents over the years. Actually born on Mother's Day, I just think that's special, right? And so as the first child of my mother and being born on Mother's Day, I think is really cool. But we actually grew up in Kellits, Clarendon, North Clarendon. That's where my parents lived at the time. And childhood days were really fun. We spent holidays many times with our grandparents. My mother's father lived in Colonel's Ridge, which is North Clarendon, and my father's parents lived in Rock River, which is just about central Clarendon. They had farms, and it was really fun to be moving cattle in Rock River, for example, from one part of the pasture to the next. And, you know, we'd spend some time with our cousins there. But also, we had some really wonderful times just playing at home. And my father taught me cricket in the backyard, right? And we would use some improvised equipment, right? But we had really good time. I remember roasting corn, and then some really good family fun times traveling around the island. My father was a forest officer, so he had, I think, a good career with the forestry department in the Ministry of Agriculture. He would spend lots of time in the hills of St. Andrew, Portland, St. Thomas, but also based in Monique, St. Anne. And he would work from there, and also in the Bullhead Mountain area of North Clarendon. So he worked all over the island, you know, helping us to preserve our forests and to ensure that the environment was protected. My mother was a postmistress, and she worked at the Mona Post Office, Watermount, Kellits, and she ended her last few years in the service were at Watermount in St. Catherine. But my brother, Alistair, spent a lot of time with our diplomatic service. He was posted in Japan at one point, and of course in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here. Eventually left that to start a publishing business on his own, so he lives with his family now in Canada, right? But we spent, for school, we attended Kellits Primary. Right through our school life, whether it was in primary school or in high school, my parents really made some sacrifices for us. And you know, that was epitomized when we were in high school. So I attended Knox College, a boarding school, so we're boarders. And my father would leave home in Kellits to drive to Spalding to visit us on every weekend. Take talk for us, make sure that we're okay. So I found that although we were from humble circumstances, we're civil servants, children, we ended up, you know, helping other kids who were much better off with talk, you know, food supplies, and even lending them money, right? Some very wealthy kids, because we had to be so disciplined in how we were managing the little we had. They probably weren't forced to be as disciplined. So I did first form at Clarendon College. That's where I passed the common entrance for. My brother was at the junior school at Knox, Knox Junior School, and my parents wanted us to be together. And so they made outreach to the principal and the vice principal of the high school, Mrs. Jones, Barbara Jones at the time, and she arranged for me to be transferred from Clarendon College to Knox. So I started Knox in second form, what they call at Knox Class 8, and it was a really great experience being at that school. Today I'm so fond of Knox. I sit on the board now. What I was exposed to at the high school, I started to develop leadership skills and getting some leadership responsibilities. I was a prefect. Then you were involved in several other activities such as track and field. I started doing a little track, and of course I played cricket for the school and represented the school in one chess match. I quite enjoyed. I got a good beating, but I quite enjoyed it. And then when doing A-levels at Knox, then we did A-levels at the community college, and that was a further, experience to develop leadership skills. And we're involved in the student council there, and I was at a canteen that was run by the students, so I was a canteen manager. But those A-level years were wonderful, developed some great friendships. So by the time we got to UWI in 1981 is when I started. I think we were well prepared for the course of study at the time. I actually joined university, was admitted to do hotel management, believe it or not, because that's what I thought I was passionate about at the time. Initially I wanted to do the law, probably 14, 15. By the time I ended A-levels, it was hotel management. I was dead set on managing a hotel. But during my first year, got some advice that the program that UWI had at the time for hotel management, which required us to start to the 1 year here and then the other 2 years in the Bahamas, that there were some challenges with the Bahamas leg of it. And so someone who was actually there advised me to try to switch to the straight management studies degree. And so I got the transfer into straight management studies and completed those studies in 1984. But again, my UWI experience was so much more than about the academics, right? It was about involvement in student leadership and in the other extracurricular activities. So I was manager of the football team, for Chancellor Hall. I was an executive of the University and Colleges Christian Fellowship, the UCCF group on campus. I was treasurer for Chancellor Hall in my second year, and then in my final year, I was a deputy hall chairman for Chancellor Hall and a guild councillor. So, if you think about it, when you combine the high school years with those years at university, lots of exposure to leadership, the ability to interact with persons from different backgrounds and different experiences, and living on campus, both in high school and university, would have given me some wonderful opportunities to develop my interpersonal skills as well and to develop a certain independence. So I think those were wonderful years that I cherish to this day. I had this combination in my heart of loving to deal with people as well as numbers, right? So I thought banking represented the perfect combination of numbers and people every day. I had this combination in my heart of loving to deal with people as well as numbers, right? So I thought banking represented the perfect combination of numbers and people every day, right? And so I applied to all the banks at the time, right? There's a few banks, but the commercial banks, those are the institutions that I submit. So I was interested in manufacturing, any other service industry, just banks. And I eventually landed a job at the bursary of the University of the West Indies right after graduation. But soon after that, started getting answers now from some of the banks, in NCB at the time, and also Citibank and so on. Eventually by February of 1985, I started my career with National Commercial Bank, and I was to be there for 23 years. I joined as a graduate trainee. That was a program they had at the time. Some called it management training, some called it graduate training. The idea was that over 18 months, you would be exposed to most of the operations in a branch, right? You wouldn't be stuck in one area for 4 or 5 years, but you'd be exposed in 8-week stints or 4-week stints of different desks in the branch. And once you were successful in that program over 18 months, you would then become a supervisor, which was a big deal at the time. Many university graduates, went on that program. Not all did well, right? And for different reasons, but I had a successful program. And so I became a supervisor at that branch, and Matilda's Corner it was. I started during that period the associateship for the Chartered Institute of Bankers, so it's called the ACIB, which really, because at UWI, they would not have gone into details of banking. It was very general. But, one piece of advice that I had received when I was being interviewed for the job is that if you really want to do banking as a career, it made sense for you to do those professional banking exams. One of the things I have always been committed to was excellence. Whatever I was doing, I was going to be very, very good at it, right? I would take home the simplest tasks when I was learning them on the counter, right? And I would practice, right? Using sample transactions, I would practice them at home, and to ensure that when I returned the following day doing the real stuff, that, it was well done and very efficiently done. And so, I remember early days when I was in the foreign exchange department doing some complex traveler's checks transactions that, one customer said, I have never been served so quickly with this type of transaction. I really set high standards for myself. I was transferred from the branch into corporate division, which was unusual at the time because the corporate division was really for the cream of the crop in terms of credit analysts, so they would pull most in fact, all of the account executive assistants from the credit department at head office. And I was, at the time, from what I can recall, the first to leave a branch and to go directly to corporate. I really threw myself into that work. And so by the time NCB in the mid-90s established an investment bank and wanted someone from their ranks to work in that small team, Mr. Rex James, as the managing director, asked me to do that. And it was a great privilege. So I joined together with a couple of other guys, and we started what was then called National Mutual Investments. So I had moved from retail banking in a branch to corporate banking to then investment banking. And that was a time when lots of investment banking activity in Jamaica was going on, and in the mid-90s. I spent 3 years there. I think we achieved some of the objectives, or most of the objectives that we had set out. So at the end of that 3-year period, though, I felt that I really now wanted to be on my own. So I spoke with the head of HR at the time, Audrey Basanta Henry, and when an opportunity came up, I was offered the opportunity to be the branch manager in Mandeville. And what a wonderful experience that was, right? Leading my own team there, but wonderful customers in that part of the island, and a great team. And to this day, I have solid friendships that were developed in those 3 years in Mandeville. My family moved to Mandeville. We worshipped at Ridgemount United Church in Mandeville. We're really part of the community. And when we returned to Kingston 2 or 3 years later, it was really a very emotionally difficult time for us, but because we thoroughly enjoyed that time. I returned to Kingston to take up the role of head of retail banking. So in 2008, I transitioned from NCB to First Global Holdings Limited. That's a subsidiary of Grace Kennedy. And, I'd enjoyed my time at NCB. I had some wonderful colleagues, some great bosses in Patrick Hilton and Dennis Cohen. Really enjoyed working with them. And of course, the chairman, Michael Leachin. But I believe that at that point of my career, I wanted something more in terms of broader responsibilities. And yes, I was leading the largest business division there, but it was at the end of the day a division of the bank. And the question is, as I looked through to the rest of my career, was it going to be sufficiently fulfilling for me to be just chasing more profits each year? And I felt that I could do a little more. And so this opportunity at Grace Kennedy came up to lead the banking and investments division, First Global Holdings Limited, and I was happy to take that up. I believe that at the time I thought that it's more than leading that business, just being mentored by someone like Douglas O'Rian was going to be a great opportunity as well, and so I accepted that offer and started in July 2008. I think it worked wonderfully. And, so I had 8 great years there. That's another iconic Jamaican institution. So if you think about it, I've really been privileged. I've been blessed to have had exposure to executive leadership at NCB and Grace Kennedy, two of the iconic institutions in Jamaica. Soon after joining, that was July 2008. By February of 2009, I was asked to take responsibility for the entire financial services division. It was then called GK Investments. What we did then was operationalize a company called GK Financial Group. And so that really was the holding company for all the financial service businesses in Grace Kennedy, cutting across 12 Caribbean territories, the money services business, insurance, banking, investments. And I had a seat on the board of the parent company, Grace Kennedy Limited. And I would say to you that it was a rich experience, just being exposed to world-class governance practices, decision-making in a conglomerate, capital allocation decisions. And we did, I believe, achieve a lot. There was pretty significant growth in the business over that time, and also some investments that will, bear fruit in the future. And so just, the opportunity to be involved in those was just invaluable, right? And again, building up some good relationships with some wonderful and talented, very, very talented people on the board and in the executive leadership team and right across Grace Kennedy. So the next phase of my life, so if you recall, 23 years at NCB, 1985 to 2008, then 8 years at Grace Kennedy, 2008 to 2016, right? And this great opportunity comes up at Victoria Mutual Building Society. And I'm thinking about this, through the last few months of 2015, and saying that I'm enjoying my time at GK, at Grace. I'm really learning a lot and benefiting from great working relationships with everyone there. And the question is, how do I pull away, and why should I pull away from that to do this job at Victoria Mutual? And you know why I eventually decided to? The mission of Victoria Mutual. The mission that was behind the establishment in 1878. And that mission was a noble one that I think is still relevant today, because Victoria Mutual was established for the purpose of ensuring that ordinary Jamaicans, if you recall, this was 1878, 13 years after the Morant Bay Rebellion, 40 years after the abolition of slavery, land ownership and home ownership, were distant dreams for the ordinary people at the time. And so some clergymen decided that, using the model that they had seen working in the UK where these building societies were being established and doing reasonably well, that model was viable in Jamaica as well. So, Reverend G.W. Downer and some other clergymen decided that they would want to establish Victoria Mutual for that purpose and to help some ordinary people to get a breakthrough by virtue of just pooling their savings, right? And, granting home loans from that. And I've always been concerned about inequality in Jamaica. I don't believe any one institution can solve that, but I believe that each institution can be a point of light, right? We need several million points of light, but let me be one point of light, right? Or let my company, let my institution be one point of light. And so that is what attracted me to Victoria Mutual. We have this ambition that, 2 or 3 years out of university, you have a stable job, we should enable you to have a mortgage to open your own doors. That's the type of ambition that we're bringing to it. Because Jamaicans are ambitious people and we want to facilitate the ambition. So that is about how we structure our mortgage products and so on, right? And how early we encourage you to start meaningful saving, right? Because that's a goal we have. Now we're committed to mutuality. And mutuality really means that the customers are also the owners of the business. That's why we call them members, right? So they're not just a customer, they're members. It's their business. And we believe that diversity of business models is good for Jamaica. It's good to have a business in the financial sector that's strong. We are the 4th largest deposit-taking institution. So, we do have a pretty decent market share, right, which we're seeking to grow. But it's good to have such a strong institution like Victoria Mutual Building Society owned by all our customers. All of these people operating in doing business, living and working in Jamaica, and many in the diaspora, owning this business and the business being run for their benefit. I would want Victoria Mutual to, during my tenure, make a real difference in financial inclusion in Jamaica, making it possible for many more Jamaicans to meaningfully participate in the financial sector, saving, but also borrowing to acquire their own homes. I think we have to keep working at ways to make a breakthrough in that respect. I'm driven by, I think, my personal convictions. My faith is very important. I'm driven by, I think, my personal convictions. My faith is very important. There's a verse in Colossians that speaks to whatever work you're doing, work at it with all your heart as if working for the Lord and not for men, right? So I really commit to doing everything that I'm doing with a certain degree of excellence because, I believe that this too is kingdom building. I think that God works through all of us, right? In helping to make the world a better place, in bringing more justice and righteousness. And I think that even in the financial sector that we can play a role in helping people to live better lives, and that drives me. Of course, I'm also driven by my family. I've been married to my wife, Pauline, for 29 years. I have a really great relationship. So she's a wonderful partner, a great support. We met at university, right? And so I see her as a great partner in this journey of life. My 2 sons, Adrian and Dominic, are also special. So we enjoy really good family times. And, some of the things that I look forward to are just holidays as a family together. And we have had some wonderful times over the years, but not just holidays, just going home during the week and spending time on weekends together is something that's special. I've grown a lot in terms of how to develop strategy, in terms of how to lead people, in terms of the ability to make tough decisions, right? And communicate tough, difficult decisions. So I've grown a lot in that respect. I've grown a lot in terms of how to network, in terms of how the responsibility of, taking public positions, right? Standing alone sometimes on popular positions. So I think all of those experiences have helped me to mature over the years. Over the years, I've been very involved in public service. So, well, first of all, through the church, I have served different congregations, Portmore United, Richmond United, Webster Memorial, in different roles in social outreach, in evangelism, in discipleship. I've served at the Knox College on the board of governors there. I've served as chairman of the National Education Trust, and that's the arm of the Ministry of Education that's responsible for stimulating private sector investments in education. So I served as chairman of that body for 4 years, and during that time we completed the construction of several school expansions, but also a new school, Cedar Grove High School, and then we spent some time developing the business case and getting approval for a project to install solar energy, PV panels in 20 to 30 schools. I think for me, true wealth is eternal. It's investing in things that last, investing in family, investing in people, so that the things you sow in people will last beyond your lifetime. And also in how you help to build a kingdom that is, reflected in love and peace and so on, some things that outlast you.